What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another interaction Q&A for this week. I love your questions. Let's keep them going. Leave them down in the description. Theory questions, general questions about music, whatever's giving you a hard time. And we'll talk about it either in the discussions or in this video. So, welcome, and let's jump right in, alright? First question. How can you use the diminished scale in metal soloing? It doesn't seem to function as well as the diatonic scales. Do I have to write a backing track only? No, you don't have to write a diminished backing track to play over, to use the diminished scale in your soloing. Granted, there are functional ways that you can do this, but you know, if you break it down real simple, what is a diminished scale? It's a tension scale. Okay? It creates tension. It doesn't sound pretty. It sounds unresolved and full of tension. Okay? So out of our three chord qualities, minor, major, and dominant, which one of those is tension? Your dominant chord. That's the function it serves. That's its role in music, is to serve as tension. So if you're playing a solo, anytime you want to use colorful notes or tension notes, that would be the time to apply the diminished scale, right? And the simplest way to do it is do it where you would put tension in a scale, you know, or else I like to think about adding tension in the lines as the end of phrases, like a drummer would, right? If you're a drummer and you're putting down a very simple beat, that fourth measure, you're going to do a fill. Well, in guitarist terms, that fill would be tension, and you can create tension by, you know, alternating rhythm and harmony and melody, and in this case, it's, you know, harmony and melody using the diminished scale. If you're playing, like, just jamming along in a pentatonic, like a pentatonic minor, A minor, E minor pentatonic, whatever you're doing, right? Anytime you would grab that flat 5 note, the blue note, would be a time to incorporate your diminished scale, right? So anytime you want to put that tension in, and a good way to do it, you can do it right on the root, like a parallel key. So if you're in E minor, use E diminished, or you can do it off of the dominant chord. So if you're in E minor, the 5th, right, E, F, G, A, B, right, you can do it off B diminished, and this way you're outlining a dominant chord, right, the B dominant chord, which is in there. So that's going to work really well. I hope that helps, makes sense. So yeah, you don't have to have a backing track over a diminished chord. Obviously, if you have a lute player and you play a diminished chord and you're going to practice some arpeggios or some ideas, then it would help. You kind of hear the sound of the chord that you're outlining. Great question. And Randy again with another question. There are lots of amazing chords in the mode of harmonic minor, but mode 2, which is Locrian sharp 6, and mode 3, Ionian sharp 5, I can't come up with hardly any good chords besides the triad and 7th chords, unlike the other modes, where I find good extended chords. Do you have any tips on these two modes for cool chords? Really good question. And again, don't separate the mode from the chords that are found in the modes of harmonic minor, because they're all the same, regardless of where you are, right? So if we're in harmonic minor, let's pick A harmonic minor, right? You're going to have an A minor chord with a major 7th, so that's going to be your one chord. You're going to have a half diminished or a minor 7 flat 5. Then you're going to have the augmented 5th chord, which is what you were talking about. So those are the two you're talking about. So the second mode is essentially a minor 7 flat 5 or a half diminished chord, and then the third chord is a major 7 sharp 5 chord, or a major chord, or major 7th chord with an augmented 5th, right? Think Simpsons or Lord of the Rings, that tonality. All right, very common, and you can reuse that as a substitute to play over any major 7 chord that you would play over. You're just obviously changing the color of it with that sharp 5. So regardless of what mode you're choosing to play in, all of those chords stay the same. They don't change. So if you have all of those chords found in the harmonic mode, then those are the chords that you can use. Okay? So that's how it works within one of the modes. Okay? And it doesn't function like the chords in a major scale, right? If I play a chord scale straight up on every note of the scale from root to root, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All of those chords have a natural static push, static push, static push, push and pull within each other, and they lead you up the scale. When you start getting into the modes of harmonic minor and melodic minor, that flow breaks down, and you actually have to look at each mode individually as the chord you're outlining. Okay, so if you're already familiar with exploring the chords in harmonic minor, There's nothing new there. They're all right here. They're all within the mode. Line 6, in my experience, truly blows. Just why? Your playing's great. Thank you. Now, obviously people like to bash on line 6, and I've had plenty of line 6 gear. Most of us have, right? It's inexpensive and it covers a lot of ground, right? You get a lot of bang for your buck, right? So when somebody buys a $100 practice amp, like the little Spiders, you have a clean channel, a crunch channel, a high gain channel, you know, some effects built in. That's very useful, right? Especially for the beginner students out there, or the very beginner players that don't have a lot. They don't know what pedals to buy and amps to buy because that's expensive. So you can kind of get an all-in-one package. So at that point, it serves a function, and it does it really well, right? Yeah, it's the metal Sims on line 6, right? We all know it's kind of fizzy. It's not the perfect amp, but it's an amp sim. They've been around for a long time, and it's not terrible. Usually their cleans do a really good job. The crunch sounds aren't bad at all. Like I said, the high gains are a little fizzy, and it takes a lot of post work to kind of clean them up, but you can do that, you know? I have a line 6 DT50, which is a tube combo amp in conjunction with Bogner. So I really like it. You know, the Fender amp sims sound phenomenal on this thing. You know, the crunch gains are always there. Obviously, you know, again, the high gain lacks a little, but you can easily dial up a terrific hard rock / metal tone out of the line 6 stuff. I understand why it gets a lot of hate in this day and age with, you know, the plugins, the JSTs, the biases, the S-Gear, you know, the Easy Mix. Your choices for the same price, you get a lot of bang for your buck. You're just plugging into your computer. You know, so really it all depends what you need. You know, you're a young beginner, you're going to go over your friend's house and play, go get yourself a little practice amp. There's lots of them out there. There's no reason to go out and get a $100 like little Fender amp that does nothing and then go out and spend all this money on an effects processor when you can kind of get one all-in-one to figure out what you want to sound like, what you want to play with, and develop as you go, right? So yeah, I understand the hate on the line 6 stuff, but you know, it has its place and it has its function, and it does well there. If you have to manipulate the riff to fit, is it really in a different time signature? I don't understand how adding or removing allows it to stay in that time. This is in reference to an older lesson that I did where I was playing, I believe it was a 6/4 riff and then layering a 5/8 melody on it, right? So what Joey here is talking about, he's looking at the music, he's not seeing 5/8 anywhere because it's layered within the 6/4, right? How many eighth notes are in a measure of 6/4? Right, there's 6/4, so there's 12 eighth notes, right? You can fit 5 eighth notes in there twice, and they just cross bar lines, so you're not manipulating it to fit in the measures of those times. It crosses over the bar line in different places, and it will eventually line back up in 1. You know, you see this a lot. You see even drummers, they'll be playing in 4/4, but they might be hitting a cymbal or a snare or a kick beat that's in or phrased in a different time, but that's still within the time. You know, eighth notes are eighth notes. Whether you're in 6/4 or 5/8 or 9/8 or 3/4, if those are all switching together, your eighth notes don't change, just how you group and phrase them, right? So that's what's going on in this lesson, and I hope that makes sense to you guys out there, all right? So these are awesome questions. Thank you so much. I love talking to you guys. Leave your questions down below in the comments. We'll talk about it. Maybe we'll get it posted up in this videos. Theory questions, gear questions, whatever's bothering you. Talk to me. Talk to me. And as always, let me know what you come up with. So until then, I'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.